All right, so we're rolling. We're heading to the gym, coaching the 5:30, 6:30 a.m. classes, and today we have a little AMRAP 12, 8 weighted walking lunges, 2 dumbbells, 6 push press, and then finishes with 4 strict pull-ups. So the weight on the dumbbells, pretty typical, 35 pounds each dumbbell for ladies and 50 pounds for guys. No weight on the strict pull-ups, just a good old-fashioned strict pull-up. And for this workout, I thought one of the things that would be cool to touch on was sort of stimulus, and as a coach, establishing stimulus, and really what do you want what to happen for your athletes, and what should they get out of this workout. So first, before we get to that, I wanted to follow up on the last podcast. We were talking about heavy days that only have a single element. We also this week did a workout by request of an athlete. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point in the future too. Athletes requesting workouts, what do you do with that? But it was we did this one a long time ago, or some version of it. It was a 30-minute weighted carry, and so this time we did a 30-minute weighted carry, 50 pounds for guys, 35 pounds for ladies. You could use anything you want to establish those weights. So multiple objects, sandbag, single object, doesn't matter. And it was really cool. I ended up doing it at home, which was really fun. I got to do it with the dogs, which is like my favorite thing in the world. If I get to work out with them, it's always the best, even though it's sometimes a little more chaotic than normal. But one of the things I wanted to say about single modality workouts, heavy days, and things like that, or this weighted run that we had yesterday, one of my favorite things about them and what I think is so important about them from a training, motivation, programming perspective is that the leaderboards change so much compared to days like today where you have a AMRAP triplet. And I think there's something very special in that. I think it's cool for maybe not always like the top couple spots, but generally you see the leaderboards shift up a whole bunch on these heavy days. And I think that is something which is really important, especially in your athletes, figuring out how do they make themselves better. And for you as a coach, figuring out how to help them improve. So, all right, back to the AMRAP 12, 8 weighted walking lunges, 6 dumbbell push press, 4 strict pull-ups, 50-pound dumbbells, 2 of them for guys, 2 35-pound dumbbells for ladies. All right, so when I think about stimulus for a workout like this, how are we getting there? How are we thinking about, the number of rounds we want our athletes to finish? When I look at a workout like this, one of the things I kind of take note of first, obviously the time domain, 12 minutes. 12-minute workouts are always feel 2 to 3 minutes longer than you want them to feel. This is one of those workouts where athletes are going to finish round 1, look up at the clock, and then be so shocked about how much time they have left. That's a good thing. The other thing is I just kind of look at the rep schemes of the movements. Now, the reps are all low reps. Everything is sub 10 reps. What that tells me, I think generally, in most cases, barring some really wild loading or highly complex movements, is that you want athletes to get a lot of the reps or the movements in an unbroken set. Otherwise, we probably would have done more reps. And so what we're trading here is shorter, faster rounds for more rounds rather than squeezing the volume out of an individual set or movement. And the last piece is, I look at the pace of the movements. And the loading, we'll talk about that. So second to last piece is the pace of the movements. Obviously, the dumbbell walking lunge will be quick. The push press will be much faster than the lunge and the pull-up, and the pull-up will be the slowest of the 3. Now, it's easy I believe, in a workout like this to fall into a trap where you think about your fittest athlete getting the 4 strict pull-ups unbroken pretty much throughout the workout. And I think that's like a safe bet to say. But when I look at this workout, what I really think about is, okay, what is the value of this workout? The value of this workout is fatiguing the upper body. It is having a high heart rate, building some strength and stamina in the legs, but doing all of that in the context of the strict pull-up. Strict pull-up is the movement that most athletes, not even just the weight, but the movement most athletes won't have if athletes aren't going to have one of those 3 movements. I also think it's the movement out of those three, which generally is the most challenging to develop. So for me in a workout like this, because of that, and the not primacy, but the value of the strict pull-up, because of the value of the strict pull-up, I'm going to try and get as many athletes doing a strict pull-up as possible, even if it slows them down a little bit. If it slows them down transitioning out of a band, if it slows them down by maybe they lose a round because they're just having to break up the strict pull-ups. I'll also, walk the reps on the strict pull-ups back before I will reduce the loading of it, i.e. band or ring row. So for me, that's really the most important part of this workout. And I think with CrossFit and the variance of CrossFit, that's something you need to pay attention to is, yes, we're generally trying to scale to maintain the stimulus. Stimulus is the time domain, how heavy should it feel, are we transferring the complexity of a movement as we scale it down and meet somebody where they're at. But also I think sometimes we forget about the focus of the movement and the workout, and the narrative of the workout. And the focus of the narrative of this workout is we're going to make you a little tired in the classic CrossFit way, and you need to get better at strict pull-ups. So that's one of the big things for me when I look at a workout like this, is helping athletes get better at the strict pull-ups, i.e. I kind of want to avoid ring rows in scaling. I know I'm going to need to use them, but if I can get as many athletes as possible in a band, that's really the mega win for this workout. And this is another reason I really like AMRAPs. I had to check my speed there for a second as I continue to chat and podcast. Just stop the pedal to the floor. It's easier to talk when you're going 90 miles an hour. Though I was not going that fast. But one of the things I really like about AMRAPs is I think AMRAPs give you as a coach a lot of wiggle room to not get solely focused on intensity. So for example, I think some of the fittest athletes in our gym will get well over 7 rounds, maybe even 8 rounds. And when I look at this AMRAP and most AMRAPs, I think most AMRAPs are always supposed to be more than 5 rounds, unless it's if not, make it a 5-round workout. There are some of those funny AMRAPs that are set up so you get through a chipper and you just barely get a couple reps into the next round. When I think about AMRAPs, it's most of the classic AMRAP structures. They kind of look like something where it's either going to be over 5 rounds, close to on the minute-ish for rounds, if it's really high rounds, or it's just this weirdo structure where you get through once, you get a couple reps, or maybe get through a movement into the next round. But one of the things I really like about AMRAPs, and I definitely abuse them for this, is you can say, is there more value to an athlete to get to scale them down so they can get 8 or 9 rounds, they can match what the fittest athletes in the class are getting? Or are they going to get more value out of this by getting 6 rounds and going slower and doing more strict pull-ups? Now, I think most of us in coaching will be chalk it up to variance, it's both, which isn't a bad answer. But looking at the athletes you're working with and thinking about what they need, what they struggle with, you can really be intentional in an AMRAP. And remember that even if, let's say, the fittest athletes in the class are going to get 8 or 9 rounds, kind of where we usually set the goal of the stimulus and try and scale everyone to meet that goal, that even if you make the workout a little bit slower for them by having them do maybe a movement that they struggle with a little bit but really want to and need to develop, they're still doing it for as many rounds as possible. They just have a harder time to accumulate those rounds, maybe because of movement loading or movement complexity. But they're still trying to maximize intensity there. I think that's something we lose sight of when we think about workouts or scaling workouts to target an athlete's weakness. So I know there'll be a lot of that going on today, me kind of letting athletes go a little bit slower there. Another great thing about a workout like this is, yes, it should be fast, but you do have this advantage of low reps. So again, if you have athletes who are always scaling down the dumbbell but want to get over that hump, you have an opportunity here. Because of the AMRAP, everybody ends at the same time. No feelings are going to get hurt. No timeline's going to get exploded. You have this opportunity to help them get a little stronger. So, and I feel pretty confident about that, especially with something like the strict pull-up. I probably won't stress too much about like the weight of the dumbbell today. For me, it'll be really transferring to them this concept of the strict pull-up, and it's a movement that I feel has a lot of value. And it was a movement where I had been doing CrossFit for, at this point, let's see, 7 or 8 years at the time. And obviously CrossFit, the kipping pull-up is pretty ubiquitous with what we do. So we were competing down in Cookeville, Tennessee, and we kind of all realized that we just weren't great at strict pull-ups. We could do lots and lots and lots of butterfly pull-ups, and chest-to-bar pull-ups, and bar muscle-ups. But me personally, especially, I was pretty disappointed in my strict pull-up capacity, strict pull-up, strict chin-up. And we went on a tear for a long time of basically, unless we were competing, like really trying to set a time for a workout to beat other people into the ground, we started doing strict pull-ups and chin-ups and strict L pull-ups and variations of those. We started basically doing those in our training, like with the sole exception if we were competing or the volume was like really high, probably more than 50 in a workout. It definitely helped a lot of things, just in terms of strengthening the upper body, and also I just think it's really good in CrossFit where you don't want to have like complete movement deficits. So that's something that's really important, I think. So I will give that movement a lot of attention today, even if it costs an athlete half a rep or two, or maybe a round and a half, because I look at the bigger picture, and if you have somebody who's on the cusp or can do a couple strict pull-ups, I think we don't know, well, I program, so I do know when strict pull-ups are going to show up again. But because of the variance of CrossFit, yes, other varied movements give you carryover to the pull-up, but sometimes I think it's really important, especially with strict movements, to get some extra sneaky volume in. So that's where we're headed today. We'll coach that one. I think there's probably like a little bit of accessory skill work tied up in this class. It's not a super complicated class to teach by any means. Maybe a little extra focus on some of the elements of the push press, making sure they don't push the arms out way to the side of that overhead Y. Some of the finer points of the torso verticality in the push press. This was a workout where, because of the leg fatigue, the speed athletes will try and move. They're going to have lean forward, toesy push presses. Like I already know that going into it. And then the lunges, they get to hold the dumbbells wherever they want. That one's just going to be, party time, making sure athletes stand all the way up, hit good range of motion. And then, like I said, in the warm-up, most of my focus, getting people dialed in on the most effective strict pull-up scaling option, whether that's reducing reps, using bands, so they can walk out of there feeling like they really develop that upper body strength. And then during the workout, most of the coaching will be on the technical coaching will probably be on the push press, and then managing scaling for athletes on the pull-up. I imagine I'll bump into a couple athletes where they'll start off with strict pull-up, and they'll really get bogged down in rounds or speed, and maybe we have to cut some reps or get them in a band. So that will be a pretty busy part of the workout. And then for more advanced athletes, when I look at a workout like this, I kind of think about, how do you challenge a more advanced athlete? And there's always a lot of ways to do it. What is an advanced athlete for this one? Again, I think about the fittest athletes in the class, and I definitely give them a little bit of leeway. Like I ask this question to a lot of people, but I found myself asking some of those fitter athletes or athletes who have been doing CrossFit a lot longer the question of like, what do you want to focus on? What do you want to get out of this? Everybody gets that question, but I think it's a little bit more collaborative with that group of athletes. Especially if I feel like, when I think about, so that's a good last little point, is when I think about athletes who have been doing CrossFit for a long time, I should not even say the advanced athletes, but doing it for a long time, they can do all the movements. maybe they have some outliers, really heavyweight or really high skill that they still struggle with. That class of like intermediate plus athletes, the ones that are sort of like, yeah, he's been here for 10 years and I'm pretty confident he knows how to do everything and he knows exactly how to scale himself to hit the stimulus. I think those are sometimes the people you got to put the reins on, and I should probably save this one to talk about it in a later podcast. But I'll probably chit-chat with them a little bit. As far as advanced athletes for me in this one, I would probably start them with the goal of unbroken rounds. And the only thing I might add in there is to an advanced athlete, I wouldn't add a heavier dumbbell for this one. I'd go one of two directions. I'd go the annoying direction, which is a kettlebell instead of a dumbbell, because then the push press just be obnoxious. Nice little twist, build some strength in different ways. Or I'd add a chest to bar range of motion to some of the strip pull-ups. So we are close to pulling into the gym, and we'll get ready to coach. As always, appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.